I had every intention of actually reacting to something else today, but I couldn't help it. Hey, it's Romania Black. And yeah, no, I have about three other shows that I probably need to be watching on my channel right now, but nope. I was like, no, I can't. I want to watch Bloom Into You. And it was sitting there, beckoning, calling my name, being like, you should probably watch this. And I was like, ah. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and watch episode 4. Because episode 3 was really good. Episode 3 was so good. It was just, we got the election. Nanami is now student council president. We've got through that hurdle. I wondered if the entire season was going to deal with the election, if that was going to be like a half season sort of thing where we get to like episode 6 and then we'd have the election. No, we're done with it now. Episode 3, boom, done. We're a fourth of the way through the series and we're already over that hurdle. And not only that, but I feel like we've gotten a little bit more with Nanami and why she does like Yuu, but also Yuu doesn't quite realize her value in this situation, I think, to the fullest potential, which is so frustrating in a way, but also the show has to have something to build on. So I am confident we're going to get there and discuss that further as we go. But I am really, 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 really enjoying this series. It's been a lot of fun, and I've really looked forward to it the last couple weeks, and we're only a fourth of the way through. So we still have quite a ways to go, and I'm really excited about that. But hopefully my dogs, who are, they are always so quiet until I start reacting, and then they're just like, there may be like a fox or a deer outside my window, and they may bark at that, so apologies if they do. But I'm really, really excited to dive into this episode and see what we get. So yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pour myself a cup of coffee, I'm gonna sit down, and we're just gonna watch Bloom Into You. And that's just gonna be the way that it is. So in any case, I want to give a special shout out over to Patreon to thank not only the people on YouTube that subscribe, but also to thank my patrons from any tier, but especially the philanthropy tier, because they help support me extra each month and make it to where I can watch shows like this. So a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Danny Don Mai, to Daverin, to Destiny Marie, to Damage3245, to Danger Zone, to Ichu, to Eric, to Ivan, to El Freya, to Lyndon, to Ghostly Turnip, to Fisho, to Murphy, to Matthew Palfinier, to Nicholas, to Nameless Monster, to No Nickname, to Sunspots, to Trails, to Shimoyama, and to Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to get into this and see what we get. So in any case, we are not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right into Bloom Into You, episode 4. And then, just see what we get. So we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do it. Oh, we get Nanami's perspective. What a very organized room. Even though her room is really well organized. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Aww. Love it. Now, we do have some mystery with Nanami as to why she is desiring to be the popular girl so badly. And she's holding a picture there in her hand there in the OP, so I wonder if that's gonna go back to that. Oh, I love that the one girl, Akari, has the love me nots. And yeah, we found out that that's like a little astrological projector that she got from the astronomy lab, which is super cute. Oh, and now it's showing up there. Yep. And the coffee. Sayaka, what are we going to do? I'm so curious to see what the relationships between these girls throughout the series is going to be like and what we do with it. I'm really curious. I feel like this was a trip to Hobby Lobby gone wrong. Or it's like a wake, in a sense. The imagery and the flowers, the bisexual blue hydrangeas. I know they're not bisexual, but I made that joke in the Buddy Daddy series, and somebody got very irritated on Twitter, and so now I just do it for fun. Aww. Aw. Bikes, good morning! Well, I mean, I did get elected the presidential couple. Sayaka doesn't deny it! She's like, yes. Oh, well. That's funny you say that. We'll go back to that thought. I honestly don't know. I think they might be wrong. I feel like Sayaka or Yuu would be perhaps the dominant one, even though Nanami puts on a show. Oh. Kiyomi. Were you not? Yeah. Oh, is she the one writing in the OP? Like Music Factory's playing behind her. Oh. I like that one guy from earlier snooping. These snoops. Snoops in school. She's like, oh, we're a little bit clingy. Oh my god. Just the coding of Hwa-Chong is just so much. Some people are going to get ideas and thinking. Oh, do you not? Yes. Keep like that abnormal distance. Oh. Who is this guy? Yeah. Dojima. Ah, he just passed off his work to him. Kendo Club. Did you now? Sayaka's not impressed. Uh-huh. Wow. He really is like the one guy from Skip and Loafer. Oh, of course the senpai recommended him. That's why I'm worried. Yeah. Exactly. He just wanted to delegate. Allegedly. She's like, you're being way too kind. I mean, I guess. Psyche. Maki's like, okay. Okay. We're gonna go back to that. The culture festival? Every high school has to have one. Yes! Good! I love getting a culture festival. Uh-huh. Oh. Just wait. It's gonna get intense. Oh. A stage show. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, they don't have a theater club. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. So they'll be the actors? She's like, we didn't sign up to act. You gonna do Romeo and Juliet or some play where Nanami and Yuu have to kiss? Yuu's like, I don't know how I feel about this. She's like, I want to revive this tradition, you know, and have us as the lead roles. No big deal. Ha! Maki's like, I don't know if I signed up for this. Yeah! You didn't tell us we were signing up for this. You know, just mull it over, but I'll be real disappointed if you don't want to do it. Sure. Okay. Oh my god, all them folders. That sounds so tedious. Oh my god, that's so meticulous. I hate data sorting. Did you totally want to join? Did you not hear my speech? Ah. Aw, you influenced him joining. Oh. Ah, so he's just continuing on. Oh, he's like a little Nabe from Daya. How cute. So he's the manager. Oh, who just conveniently left this script right here? Oh, how did this just happen to end up here? Oh, so that's where she got the idea. Okay, sure, Jan. There was too much sex and they had to stop. Are there going to be just enough roles for the student council members? Well, I mean, but if the student council numbers haven't changed, I guess that'd be about right. Why do we zoom in on her calves? Where you gotta go, Sayaka? Whose date you were on? Oh, she does flower arranging. Okay. We'll just leave you two alone. Don't mind us. That isn't... Oh, come on! You... This is just an excuse for the two of you to be alone in a building together. Oh. Are we gonna get flirty? There's nobody here. Just the two of us. Yeah, what... But are you saying no or yes? Ah. Oh, well. Girl, you blushing too. Did you tell? Oh, girl. That's a bold move. Hmm. Hmm. Oof. Oof. She's like, sorry, I overstepped my bounds. There's like a little tiny blush, like a baby blush. Like little. And then Sayaka comes in. Oh, shit. Oh, is somebody watching? Oh, no. Oh, was it Maki? Oh, no. Oh, no. At least it was Maki and not the other one, Doshima. Oh, shit. Oh, no. I thought the pencil case was either you or Nanami's. How's he going to take this? Oh, is that it? Maki, what are you going to do? Ooh, is he trying to feel it out? Playing solitaire. Tic-tac-toe. You know, and stuff. Quit asking questions, Maki. Oh, you troll. Have to get going. Oh, you're such a bad troll. Bitch. I don't think Maki's going to tell anybody. He's going to keep this to himself and milk it for all it's worth. That he seems like that type of person. Here's a Pocky stick. Oh, it's the strawberry kind, your favorite. Oh, Yu's really stubborn. I would not think she'd cave. Ah. No. No. They're like, nope. She's like, no. Of course, Nanami, you would. Of course you would. Oh, no. She knows what she's doing. The stage show is a chance for them to act as a couple. I'm sure. You have an ulterior motive. Maki, you know! Bitch! Oh my god! I freaking love it! Oh, hun, you might be barking up the wrong tree. Or Team Psyche. You of all people. Oh my god. No. Ooh. I don't have a type. Ooh, interesting. Give me something to do so I don't have to talk to him about types anymore. He's like, I really told y'all I like being a supporting role. Make it a one-woman show. Maki, don't tell her about it. Oh, I don't know if she's the one to tell that to. You're stirring the pot, Maki. You're stirring the pot, Maki. Ooh, Maki, you are shit stirring. Ah, that's what you're gonna say. Oh, I love that. Yeah, where he's just like, oh, girl, you don't even know. You don't even know. Maki, you fiend. Oh. Ooh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they had thought that. Maki, you're such a shit stir. She's like, oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Mm. Oh, shit. Oh, no. That's not what she wanted. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Oh, no. Hmm. 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 That's what you took from that. Which is true. Ah, interesting. Oh. Oh. Aw. Oh, that's why you like it. Oh. Oh. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh. And I love they told her all this. Whew. Interesting. I mean, yeah, that's... Huh. If you don't want people to know. No, 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 no. Oh. Hmm. Yeah. And you didn't realize it yourself. Huh. Is it now? It's just normal after all. Yeah, well, sure it is. Oh my gosh. Maki. Freaking love Maki. Yes, please. All right, Maki. All right. We'll talk about his character. Oh, yeah. Being in a relationship with someone is very hard to hide. And especially to hide if you are not in the confines of your own home. So, yeah, you know. I like her looking into the cup to show kind of like the disconnect there. I don't think we've met the girl with the pigtails, have we? Or the other girl. I don't think we've met them. Obviously, there's Maki. And these two ladies, we haven't. And there is Daojima. Oh, no, there's Daojima and Maki. The others we haven't met. Okay, and that's the sister, and there's maybe a boyfriend there. Interesting. Cute! Okay. Adorable! Yes, please. Yes, please. Aw. Yeah, we should talk about this. Wow. So, this was a really good episode. I'm really excited that we're getting into Maki's character. We get basically a large chunk of this is the relationship developing with Maki and then you and all of this with Nanami, and very interesting. So yeah, you people, if you're ever going to be in a relationship with somebody, do not try to be like, oh, we're going to keep it totally secret. No one ever's going to find out. It's like, no, you can't do that. Unless you go straight to that person's house and you're in like the comfort of their room and no one else is seeing you. But eventually, if you're in a relationship with someone, people are going to find out. Not just because you're eventually going to want to have some form of maybe affection take place outside of the confines of each other's rooms, but also if you care about someone, then you want to give gifts to them. You want to give gestures of affection to them. It's only a matter of time before that love for that person, if it's genuine, is going to exceed beyond whatever container you try to box it up in. So if you are uncomfortable with said relationship for whatever reason, that's something you need to work through. And we'll talk about you and her factors kind of like we've talked about last week with it. But I'm so glad that Maki was the one that found out, because at first I thought it was Daojima and I was like, oh no, he'd be the worst person. He'd tell everybody. But Maki, luckily, is not like that. And he is a much more gracious soul, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So I think that's really interesting. But we need to go back through this episode and start from the beginning and just go through chronological order. Nanami has a couple things about her room. One, everything is very neat and tidy, which is very nice. But also, it's just kind of meh. It's bland. It's just a regular room. There's nothing special about it, which is really fun to me because you kind of points out, she's like, you're not like the others. I'm not like the others. I never thought of you as perfect or anything like that. Everyone else that Nanami knows treats her as special and like she's this great, person above others. And Yu's not like that. And she kind of sees through the facade and is like, well, you're just a regular person like everybody else. And I like the confirmation that Nanami is just a regular person. There's nothing special about her room. It's just normal. It's not as decorated as Yu's room. It's just it's kind of bland. And that's okay. And her saying this is normal. I like how you consistently calls like her affection and stuff towards Nanami. She's like, it's normal. It's just what I'm doing, which it is. There's nothing wrong with what she's doing. It's totally normal. And her telling Nanami being like, it's normal for you to have anxiety before speaking in front of a crowd. It's normal for you to be questioning yourself and having doubts. Like, people have those things. You're not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. I'm accepting you with all of your flaws. And Nanami, of course, is like heart eyes, like pops out of her and everything. So I just like the idea that she kind of turns her head and looks at herself in the mirror, like checks herself out, and she's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make out today in the cabin. I have a feeling I'm going to keep talking about the OP as we go on, so we'll just ignore and sky through that for right now. It is really funny though. We talked about the hydrangeas real quick in the OP there. The blue and pink and purple hydrangeas. There's a series called Buddy Daddies, and one of the characters there, of course, a lot of it's subtext, but one of the characters I like to think is bisexual in that series. And there's a scene where that subtext becomes very apparent. And there's a bunch of blue and pink and purple hydrangeas, which is like the bisexual flag colors. They're all surrounding that scene. So I joked on Twitter. I was like, oh, the bisexual hydrangeas. Like, oh, look at this. And someone on Twitter was like, that's not what they mean. You don't know. And I was like, and so they got so riled up because I was just having fun that now I have fun all the time. So when I see those flowers, I'm like, oh, the bisexual hydrangeas. Yes. So it's just kind of funny, certain hydrangea colors depends on the pH balance in the soil. So, I'm not going to get into the science of it, but yeah, I just think it's funny. So, but there's also yellow hydrangeas in there as well. So what can we do? But, well, we're not going to get into the LGBTQAI plus flags in this point. But Nanami's in a great mood. She's feeling great. And Sayaka's like, oh, look at you. So then we have these two guys. These two guys that they walk past being like, oh, it's the power couple. And she's like, who are you calling couple? And Sayaka's like, she doesn't call us a couple. Sayaka, here's the thing. Sayaka and Nanami, Yuu thinks that Nanami's entire reputation would collapse if people found out that she was in a relationship with a girl. She feels like Nanami would be ostracized. I do understand Yuu's concern about the election portion of it, and if people would be like, oh, Nanami rigged this election by having her girlfriend have this impassioned speech, and she's like, I don't want people to think that about us, and then be like, oh no, and feel like her reputation would be tarnished as far as getting the election fixed. So I could see why Yuu would think that and be concerned about that. And it's really weird because there's such a huge difference between Sayaka and Yuu's reactions, I think, towards if this news were to come out. Yuu believes that if people found out that Yuu and Nanami were dating or were into each other, they would ostracize Nanami and make fun of her, and she would feel horrible about it. Sayaka, I think if people said that Sayaka and her were a couple, she'd be like, yeah, you got a problem with it, and would not think anything about it, nor think that their reputations would be tarnished in any way. I think she'd be like, yeah, what of it? I feel like her and Nanami, in Sayaka's mind, she sees them as both these really strong, impenetrable characters that are infallible to the ostracization of the rest of their class. The funny thing about all that is that the reality is Nanami, I think, would probably have a reaction like what Yuu is thinking. Because as we established last episode, Nanami isn't as strong-willed and impenetrable as she puts on in front of Sayaka. She has all these vulnerabilities and this weakness, and she kind of reveals to us, the audience, she's been building herself up to get to this point. And I think Yuu is more correct than Sayaka in saying if this were to get out and it have a negative effect, Nanami would probably, her ego would crumble a bit. Now, Sayaka probably doesn't think that, and so I wonder if it does get out, because it's going to get out. It's going to get out in the series. And this series is doing a really good job of building up all these hurdles that we, the audience, can see happening for these two and being like, oh no, they're going to have to deal with that. Oh no, they're going to have to deal with that. Oh no, they're going to have to deal with that. I'm hopeful that not only will Maki's an ally. Like, Maki is ally central. He is Union Station of allies right here in front of you. I feel like Sayaka would definitely be an ally. once she got over her jealous bitterness that it wasn't her. It makes me think of the Golden Girls scene. If you've never seen the Golden Girls, you should go watch the Golden Girls. It's amazing. But it's these 4 old women that live in a house together, and they're like all best friends. And one of their friends comes to stay, and she's a lesbian. And so one older woman, she's very Southern. Her name is Blanche Devereaux, and she's just Southern, doesn't know very much stuff. And the one roommate says, well, so-and-so, she's a lesbian. And Blanche thinks that she says Lebanese anyway. So the thing is, she's like, well, I can't believe that. She's like, because you find out that the friend is attracted to one of the roommates, and she's like, well, to think that she'd be in love with her and not me. And it's like, oh my God. So long story short, I feel like Sayaka, if she's like, Nanami, you like girls, why don't you like me? And that's the thing, regardless of what gender or what, person you like, whether they have a gender or not, the fact of the matter is that you like who you like and you don't who you don't. And that's the hardest thing about relationships, is that you can be in love with someone, and I've been there where I was like, I think you might be the one. And they were like, no, I don't agree. And I was like, and it's the worst feeling. It really is the worst feeling to kind of bare your soul and to get rejected. But that's just the way it is. So I've done it. I've had people like, I think it would be great. And I was like, no, I'm not feeling it. So it's like, ugh. But I feel like Sayaka would be an ally once she got over. I think in the end, Sayaka would value Nanami enough. I think she'd be pissed at you because she doesn't seem to care for you. But I feel like her affection for Nanami and her friendship with Nanami would trump whatever feeling she has for you or the situation that it wasn't her. But so anyway, these guys are like, oh, the power couple. And they just go on and they're like, which one's the husband? So which one is they say husband, which one's the top, who's the bottom? If you're going by that standard. And they're like, well, obviously, isn't it Nanami? I don't know. Here's the thing. It reminds me of Given in one sense, where with Given, and that series, it's a BL series, you have your 2 main characters. You have Mafiyu and you have Wayne Oyama. Now, the thing of it is, Mafiyu was in a previous relationship with someone else. And the funny thing is, it's like, with same-sex relationships, with heterosexual relationships, it's very much kind of based on biology, who's the top and who's the bottom. I mean, the puzzle pieces kind of fit together. It's kind of obvious. That's your one way fits all sort of scenario. But with same-sex relationships, it's a little bit more complicated. And there are not only like a top and a bottom, there can be a side, there can be, people that switch, that do both. There can be, I just recently learned what a side is, and in a BL relationship, it's, someone that doesn't necessarily want anything penetrating, but they can do other things, basically is what it is. And it's like respect. So I think that it's so interesting how relationships, they aren't necessarily in BL and GL relationships. They're not defined by this who is in control and who's the husband and who's not. There's a whole, just as there's a spectrum of sexuality, there's a spectrum of how those relationships are defined and what, position or role you play, and it can change. It does not have to be the same every single time. And that's something that's very interesting about those relationships, is that when you write them or you see them in shows, there's so many options and so many different ways it can go. So I think for these 2 guys just being like, well, who's the top, who's the bottom, who's the husband, and who's the wife? It's like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And they try to make it simple, but it is very much not. So anyway, Nanami's super excited. She's like, we can finally get started with this play that we've not even told the rest of the student council about. And Sayaka's like, let's do it. So, and a part of me doesn't blame them. Because it's like, if you're putting on a play, there's a lot of parts and pieces. So you got to tell the artists, you got to tell the costume designers, you got to get the ball rolling before you necessarily tell the others. I'd be like, you know what? If Maki and you don't want to participate, but Daojima's down, do like a one act. Do a one act play, have the three of them acted out. It'd be great. Have you and Maki be the puppeteers and control puppets for it, and they don't have to be seen on stage. They can work behind the scenes. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll talk about Maki and the whole behind the scenes thing. So I'm wondering what the one friend is writing behind the math book, because it looks like Akari is helping her with like after school math classes, and she's like, Kiyomi, that's her name. She's like, can I erase the blackboard? And meanwhile, she's writing in her little poetry book, which looks like it's connected to the OP. So I'm curious to know, like, does Kiyomi have a crush on Akari? Or does she have a crush on somebody else? And that's what she's writing about. And Yu's like, what are you doing? And she gets really defensive about it. And she blushes. So I'm like, does she have a crush on Akari? I don't know. We don't exactly know yet. But yeah, but Akari, she's off to basketball practice. She seems like this whole breakup situation, she's not letting it fluster her, which is nice. And then Toko shows up, and I like how those guys are like, oh, she shows up to see the young first year that helped her with the speech. It's like, and they're in the middle of a school. People are going to talk. People are going to talk at this school. Let's be real. So they're going to find out, they are, right? Because Yu's like, she's like, you're being really close, senpai. And Nanami's like, oh, what I am? She's like, your idea of personal space is not normal. This entire walk down the hallway, for those of you that have not read Heaven Official's Blessing, if you like this series and would like to watch a Chinese fantasy version of it with 2 men instead of 2 women, you should go watch Heaven Official's Blessing, because it's basically the same dynamic. Nanami could not be more Hwachong coded if she tried. Could not be more. I mean, there's some things she could do, but I'm not going to spoil the story for you. You should go watch Heaven Official's Blessing. Go read it. It's great. It's on the channel. Have fun. So, but yeah, she just very much has that same coding, especially when she's like, but can we do this? And Yu's like, no. Like, it just feels very Sheelian. Like, no, not in front of all these people. How embarrassing. And even the way, it's so fun to me, because even the way, like, and I'm not spoiling anything you won't find out instantly within Heaven Official's Blessing, but it's like Hwachong and Nanami are both very much coded like they're both gay, just straight out, there they are, boom, there it is. But Yu and Sheelian are kind of more like demisexual, where it's like, well, I kind of am, but only if I'm really into you, and I gotta build up that relationship and that trust. We'll talk about the kissing scene, honestly. But yeah, and so it's just, and Nanami is pretty respectful. She's like, everyone admires you one way or another, Nanami. She's like, there's no room for misinterpretation, because if you're around me all the time, it's going to make people jealous. And she's like, fine, I'll be more careful. And to her favor, she is more careful. She waits till everybody leaves, and then that's that. So it's like, and that's the deal. So then we meet Daojima. Daojima's an interesting character. He has the funky, cool, little trendy glasses. He seems super enigmatic. He's very, very, very energetic, and he seems like he has a good personality. He was in the Kendo club, but he left because he sucked at it. Which, at least he's honest. He's not too egotistical. But I love Sayaka's dismay that the previous student council president, who reminds me a lot of the student council president in Skip and Loafer, he just kind of like throws Daojima into the group, being like, he'll do your work. And Sayaka's like, she just doesn't like the student council president, the previous one, at all. And of course, Daojima's like, well, I heard being on student council gives us bonus points on our report card. And she's like, you should be doing this because you want to do it, not because you're getting bonus extra credit points. But Nanami kind of sticks up for him. And she's like, hey, he came to us. We didn't have to come to him. He seems down to help out. Let's put him to work. And if he wants those extra credit, it'll be fine. And Daojima even admits that he was inspired by Yu and her speech to join the student council. So that puts an added pressure on Yu, because she's like, shit, if they find out that Nanami and I are in a relationship and they think that Nanami just hired me because I'm her girlfriend, then Daojima is going to kind of feel betrayed and be like, oh, I joined this because I was inspired by you, and was that for nothing? So it adds like another layer of pressure onto you in this whole thing. But Nanami gives people the benefit of the doubt. And I like that trait about her character because it, one, makes it more apparent why people like are gravitating around her because of her personality. But two, Nanami's putting on an act. And she knows that. And so she's trying to give these other people benefit of the doubt, being like, hey, maybe they're putting on an act too. We can't judge them because we don't know what their actual lives are like. So let's just be nice to them. And so it makes sense why she would say something like that. Why would she be like, well, yeah, he's senpai, has personality. He can find talented people. We should be fine. And Sayaka's like, well, that's just being the nicest person ever, but okay. So anyway, they introduce themselves, and Sayaka, Seiki, and they're like, we're going to manage the student council. I find it interesting that it's 5 of them. I would imagine it would have been 6, but I guess 5 works. So they have midterms, tests, sports day, the end of semester exams, summer vacation, and then the culture festival. See, Japan and US semesters are different. I'm a teacher, so I think of my calendar for the year is always split into semesters, and that's just how it is. So in the US, most schools start in August. That's when the first new school year starts in August. Some start in September after Labor Day, but it seems like fewer and fewer do that. Most of them start in August. So about mid-August to end of August is when your school starts. That's the beginning of the new year. Then that's your fall semester from August to December. You usually get off for Christmas and winter break. If you celebrate other holidays other than Christmas, you usually get off around the end of December for a couple weeks. At my school, you're off for like 4 weeks, which is nice. Not the students are, not the faculty. We have to stay like an extra week or two. But you get off around December, you're off for a couple weeks for New Year's, then you go back, and spring semester starts in January and runs January to May. And usually most schools have like a spring break that's in March or April, right before the end of the year. So then your graduation is in May, and usually it's the beginning to middle of May. So then you have the end of May, June, and July, and the beginning of August. So you really have like essentially 3 months of summer vacation. It's just spread out that way. In Japan, the new school year starts in April, so it's a bit different. And then in the fall, after summer vacation, you have your culture festival. I love a culture festival. Every slice of life anime and My Hero Academia has had a culture festival. Freeze had a culture festival. My Hero Academia has had a culture festival. Skip and Loafer has had a culture festival. What other ones has had a culture festival that I know of? Those are the 3 ones that I really remember: Free and Skip and Loafer and and My Hero Academia. Those are probably the 3 that are some of my favorites, but I'm sure others have had culture festivals as well. But I like it. I like a good culture festival in the series. I'm pretty excited for this one. Should be a fun time. So I do agree with Maki that doing a stage show along with prepping the culture festival is a lot, because at first when she's like, our responsibility is to work behind the scenes and ensure that all the students can enjoy the event, I'm like, there's only 5 of you, and for a culture festival with all the clubs and organizations and all the classes, that seems like a lot of work. And then she says on top of that, they want to start doing, she's like, that's not all. And Sayaka's like, Nanami is really, really into this project. This side project is the stage show, and she's super excited about it. Sayaka just seems like she's going along with it. Nanami seems like this is her jam, and Sayaka's just kind of like, I'm going along with it because Nanami thinks it's a good idea. End of story. She's like, a stage show is normal at culture festivals, but our school doesn't have a theater club. I find that interesting. Again, it's really cool to see that different schools have different clubs. And it's kind of like here in the US. In my school, we didn't have a theater club. We didn't have a music program either. But like the school next door had both. So it's just, you never know. It depends on the faculty, depends on the school, depends on the school's focus. That was not ours. Ours was definitely more like a agriculture school, if I was going to call it anything. And then athletics and agriculture were like the 2 main things. So that's interesting to me. They don't have a theater club. So she's like, we'll be the theater club. And I could see why Nanami is really excited about the idea of a stage play, because it's acting. It's what she's really good at. She does it every day. So the idea is that a performance, she's like, oh yeah, but not only that, if you only have certain members and certain number of members, then you only have certain number of roles. And she's like, this is a chance for me to act alongside you, and we can do certain things and get away with it because it's part of the show and it's not a reflection of real life, even though Maki's probably just sitting there like, really? But yeah, if you're someone that's very performative, sure, theater sounds great. But that's the difference between you and Nanami. Nanami is performative all the time. Yuu is not. Yuu is very much heart on her sleeve. Like, oh, no, I can't act. I don't want to lie to everybody, even though she's kind of doing that. So she talks about how the art club and the woodworking club and everybody works together to help do the project. And she's like, all we have to do is just show up and, act out the play. And I'm like, oh, you make that sound real easy. But as somebody that's been in a play, that's not hard. She's like, they just couldn't find enough actors. And they're like, man, the members of student council must have been really enthusiastic back then, but it became a tradition. And I think it was 7 years ago, the tradition just stopped. And I love the way they animate Yu's face where she's just like, no. She's like, I don't know if I believe in this. She's like, no, I don't, this seems fishy. I wonder why they stopped. They made a point to tell us that, not only tell us that the event stopped 7 years ago, but then you asked about it again, and Nanami kind of skirted her way around the edge without answering the question. So I feel like that's going to be relevant. At some point, they're going to bring that back up. She's like, it'd be fun to revive the tradition, right? And Daojima's like, I'm in. And Maki's like, no. He's like, our responsibilities keep us busy enough already. And I get his point there. Maki's like, we're going to have a lot to do. This seems like a lot extra, and that would spread us thin. So I don't know. And she's like, well. And you can tell Nanami's like, but I really want to do this. She's like, it's just an idea. We've got some time to think it over, which means she's going to try to push for it. She's like, let's put aside the decision on whether to do a stage show for now and start planning the festival. So then Sayaka is like, okay, the previous cabinet had this job of reorganizing all the files, and that's what we've got to do now. That sounds like a garbage job, and I'm amazed that the high school students have to do that. As somebody that works, like August and January are my busiest months because it's a lot of data entry, and it's just tedious, busy work that we need to input for auditing purposes, and it's just so boring. And so when she said they had to do that, I was like, oh my God, that sounds absolutely atrocious. I don't blame you for hating it. Maki seems perfectly fine about it, and Daojima's like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And so that's when Daojima says that he was inspired by you. And she's like, oh, don't be inspired by me. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. And Maki's like, well, I was a member of the student council in middle school, so I'm just continuing on what I started. And I like that this is kind of the foreshadowing where Maki talks about he participated in some sports clubs, but he was never the player. Half of this episode is called Not One of the Characters. He's not one of the ones playing in the game. He's watching as a bystander from the sidelines and helping to manage the game, watching over it, controlling it, but not playing in it himself. And I don't know, to me at first, when he was talking about this, I was thinking of an Ace of the Diamond character that he reminded me of. And the one guy's like, so do you want to be the manager? And so he's like, well, I'm not sure I can handle a stage show because I like being behind the scenes. Being on the stage means I'm a character, and that's not what I want to do. So Maki seems like he's not going to bend on this. I feel like Maki's not going to bend, and Yuu definitely doesn't want to bend on this either. So I'm curious to see how the three of them convince them otherwise. But whenever Daojima was asking Maki, like, what your type is, and we'll get to that point here in a minute, whenever Maki was like, I don't really have a type, at first I was like, does that mean he's gay and he doesn't like any type of girls? But the more the episode went on and we got to the theater scene where he explains how he likes to sit on the sidelines and observe but not become a part of it, I was like, oh, you're like asexual. Like you are legit asexual. You don't want any part of it. You just want to watch it and see it go down, but you don't want to be involved yourself. I'm like, I know that feeling so well. And that's such a feeling. I feel like if you are asexual or on that ace spectrum, you can read it, you can listen to it, you can watch it, and you love to see that romance unfold. But then when it gets projected onto you, you're like, oh no. I like watching, but I don't want to be a part of that. And I was like, I suddenly felt this huge connection to Maki because I was like, no, I know that feeling. That's such a real feeling, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I was like, oh, it suddenly made a lot more sense. So what they say there, the Mystery Club's murder investigation. So this is a mystery club. It was just a script taken and used by the student council. I'm like, didn't the Mystery Club have the play going? And Sayaka's like, oh, it just got mixed in those other documents. We just happened to find it. And it's like, did we now? Interesting. And Toko got the idea of reviving it by finding all these extra copies. So then we get the Mystery Club. Okay. Oh. Mio Nanami. Oh. Mio Nanami, Tomoyuki Ichigaya, Eureka Yamane, Setsuyai Uemura, and Ayu Hayashi are the 5 that are involved in it. I was like, oh, well, imagine that. There's 5 people involved in the murder mystery, and there's 5 student council members. So, of course, there's the perfect number for it. But Mio Nanami. Now, Nanami said at the beginning of this last episode that it was just her and her parents. So, and she said that she had felt really alone in the world until an incident happened when she was a kid. So my question is, and we saw a woman with Nanami like as a child. My question is, did Toko have a sister? Is Mio her sister? And did Mio die? And that's in a moment that impacted her where she was like, no, I'm not going to be this shy, reserved kid anymore. I'm going to work my way up to the top. Then the question is, was Mio a student council member? And that's what has influenced and encouraged Nanami to follow suit. Was Mio, as part of the mystery club, did Mio die after this play? Or was there an accident? Or did something happen and was Mio's group the last group that did this play? And then Mio died and they kind of just stopped doing it out of reverence. And they were like, we're not going to do the play next year. We just don't feel like doing it anymore. I don't know. That's going to be interesting. But I didn't see that at first, that it was Nanami's name. So I'm like, okay, so did she have a sister? Is this a very old script and it's her mom? Is it her cousin? We don't know. So that's going to be interesting. If it was such a tradition, why did it stop 7 years ago? Which would be around the time that Nanami shows up, and would be around the time 7 years ago. If they're, 16 or 17 right now, she'd be about 10 years old, which would be about the time in the timeline where she started to change. Nanami did. So I think there's a connection there. It's just a tiny little segment, but I feel like we're going to go back to that. So we shall see. Ha ha ha. Anyway, so they go back to the house, and poor Yuu, she's like exhausted from all the data sorting. And Sayaka's like, okay. And then Sayaka's like, I've got to get going soon. She's like, you're doing flower arranging today, right? So I like that we also get an idea of what some of them do in their spare time. Like Sayaka does flower arranging. She does these other things from home. And the moment Nanami's like, well, I'm going to use the computer, so I think I'll just stay. And everybody's like, okay, good work, bye. And Maki's like, I'm going to excuse myself. And she's like, me too, I guess. The moment Nanami looked at her, I was like, oh my God, you're not going anywhere. Because she's like, oh, excuse me. And then Nanami just looks at her. Here's the thing. When I was in college, there was this really flirty guy that just wanted to make out with people. Like, just wanted to make out with them. Didn't really, he did other things with other girls, but if you just wanted to make out with him, that's fine. That's all he would do. It's fine. And I did like making out in college. Like, that part was fun. But there's a moment, if you've ever been in this situation, where you just look at somebody and they look back at you and there's this like unspoken tension, and it's like, do you want to kiss? Sure. Okay. All right. That look that Nanami gives her, and then she looks back, that silence and that look between them, that is that feeling. That is that feeling to a T. That is, it's incredible how that little tiny subtle micro expression animation captures everything about that moment. Bam. There it is. Right there. And I was like, I've been there. I know that feeling. It's like, it's like, okay, there we go. And then you was like, oh, well, I think I'll stay back and use the computer for a while too. That's not how that goes. That's like if you go to somebody's dorm room and they're like, we're just going to watch a movie. Just sit on the couch and watch a movie. They call it Netflix and chill for a reason. But yeah. So they're sitting there on the computer and she's like, oh, well, you can. And Nanami is smooth as peanut butter, y'all. Smooth as some creamy ass Jif. She just slides that computer over, being like, well, you can use this computer too. Just let me squeeze a little closer to you and we'll just look at it together. And it's like, bitch, you ain't here for that. There's like spider solitaire. And I like that Yuu's so blunt. She's like, yeah, I didn't need to use it either. I just figured we were just gonna have this moment together alone. And honestly, I get where Yuu is coming from, where she's not feeling the sparks, but there's clearly the potential for something there. And she's like, I don't want to leave, but she's like, I don't really have anything to do, so I'm just hanging around. But at the same time, you agreeing to stay there is kind of like, it sets up the, okay, now I'm going to ask you this question. Are you comfortable with this? And then it's going to kind of develop from there, right? Because if she wasn't comfortable to begin with, she would have just left. And that's when Nanami's like, okay. And she's like, oh, do you just go with the flow? And she's like, no. She's like, you're kind. You going with the flow is not a bad thing. And now Yuu blushes throughout this whole thing. Like, she clearly is affected by what's going on. Nanami is way more affected. She's like flushing. And she's like, I want to kiss you. And Yuu's like, and Yuu does have a point at first where she's like, okay, you said it's okay if I don't love you back, but you're still coming on to me. You're still pushing this. Even though I told you that I didn't want to be in a relationship, you're still trying to wiggle your way in. And Nanami's like, well, I can't help how I feel. You stayed behind. We're here. I would like to do this. I didn't want to take you by surprise and kiss you without telling you, so that is why I'm asking you now. And it's like, okay. And so she's like, and because Yuu's like, do you think it's acceptable for the student council president to be so fickle with her words? And she's like, I can't help how I feel. She's like, you are always willing to tolerate my feelings, and you tolerate me and my love for you, and it just makes it grow. She's like, I can't help that. So do you want me to stop or not? And I'm like, she's like, it's all because of you. And it's like the play on words there. And Yuu's like, well, I'm jealous. I wish I could be like that. And at first, Nanami's like, what are you talking about? So again, Yuu just isn't feeling the sparks. She would like to be feeling the sparks. That's the thing. And I think that's a very important point to make. Yuu wants to feel that way about her. She wants to feel as in love with Nanami as Nanami's in love with her, and it's just not hit her yet. Now, do I think something is going to happen that's going to make them temporarily break up? Oh, probably. It's probably the angsty, you know, we're going to have rule of 8, I'm sure. Or this could be like Skate the Infinity and be rule of 7. We'll see. I was thinking about that today. I was like, ooh, I don't know. We're going to get palm trees in this. But I feel like they're going to have a moment where they are broken up, with giant air quotations, and Yuu and Nanami are separated, and that whole absence makes the heart grow fonder. I feel like in that moment, you will realize, oh, I do like her. Okay, like that. And I am yearning for her like that. Aha. And then like the light bulb is going to go off, and that's going to be the moment. I could be wrong. This show could take in a totally different direction. I don't know. But I feel like that's going to happen at some point. And so, but right now, she's not there at that point yet, but she's also inviting this to happen. She's like, okay, I'm not repulsed by any of this. I'm not detracted from any of this. So, okay, sure. And that's kind of like the first baby steps into something. Like, I personally have never felt attracted to a woman ever. This is not something at all. I do find like men aesthetically appealing, and I feel like there's a non-sexual attraction there. It's hard to explain, but it's like I feel the aesthetic there. I don't mind like kissing or doing anything like that, but anything that's overtly sexual, I'm like, I kind of draw the line. I like take my little stick and I draw the line in the sand, being like, nope, we're gonna stop right here. That's as far as it goes. Unless, of course, I think that maybe if I felt, but I don't know. I think in my head, I'm like, if I knew you long enough and I developed that relationship with you, maybe. But then a part of me that is also like, no, I don't think that'd ever happen. So, but definitely the fact that Yuu is even okay with Nanami kissing her is a major flag. It's a major sign in that direction that, yeah, you at least are okay with this. So there is a chance that attraction is going to be there. And then Nanami's like, why? And then that's when Yuu says, well, it's not as if I hate it or anything. And if I say I wasn't interested, well, I would be lying. So she's like, I am kind of into girls. I just, and I also feel like Yuu doesn't want to lead her on, because she doesn't want Nanami. There's a lot going on with Yuu. She is complicated, and I like Yuu's character a lot because there's a lot going on here. You've got one, the fact that she's not sure of her sexuality all the way, so she doesn't want to rush into something, which is very understandable. Two, she's not having this love at first sight experience, which is what she's built up in her mind would happen, so she's trying to reason through that. Three, she has a home life where while her sister is accepting of her and possibly her decisions, her parents are not. And that you don't think it should put a barrier there, but it puts a big barrier there because Yuu does not seem like the type of person that wants to rock the boat. She's not the type of person that is okay without affirmation or without validation, and she fears being ostracized. Is she more, what's impressive about Yuu's character, she's more afraid of Nanami being ostracized than herself. But I think that barrier does still exist there. So Yuu is willing to admit to Nanami, she's like, I'm open to the idea of experimenting with you. I think I might like it. I think I might be liking it. But she's like, I'm tiptoeing my way in because Yuu's a very cautious person. And she's not impulsive or spontaneous, or I'm just going to jump headfirst in like Nanami can seem at times. She wants to take things more slowly and be more methodical about it and think of all the different things that come with that. Whereas Nanami's like, I love you, let's make out. And she's like, you want to kiss even though you don't like me. And I like that Nanami tries to tease her, like Nanami's testing the waters. She's like, so you want to kiss me even though you don't really like me. Is that it? And then when she does the whole like you perv thing, and Nanami's like, oh, well, Nanami's like, that foreplay. I feel like Nanami's reaction would be my reaction. I'd be like clutching my pearls, being like, oh, excuse me, sir. You don't say that to a Southern lady. Which is ridiculous. People do that all the time. But yeah, where she's like, and I like that Yuu's like, I am not into kink play. She's like, I am not, if you're going to make fun of me, then I'm leaving. And Nanami's like, oh, okay, hold on. She's like, I was just making a joke. I can see I stepped over my boundaries. But I like that Yuu has specific boundaries. She does. And she's very, very willing to talk about them with Nanami, which is important. Communicating with your partner. Not everybody's, I know a lot of us read AO3. A lot of us read the kinky stuff. It's fun. It's fine. But a lot of us probably don't want that done to us in real life. We're like, okay, it's cool to read about and watch other people do it, but not for me. And so I feel like Yuu's just kind of like, no. And Nanami is like, well, now don't be hasty. And then she's like, okay, are we doing this or are we not doing this? And Yuu's like, okay, well, damn it, you look like a overly sincere cat, I guess. And so then they do. I do love that Nanami, like, closes her eyes to kiss. She's so romantic. And Yuu's like, okay. I love it because, again, if you hadn't been interested in it, she would have done like what she did with the guy back at the tree and been like, no, let's not. So then Maki notices it. And It's very apparent from Maki's angle what's happening. And he just looks as pleased as frickin' punch. I was like, Maki, you stir. Maki is such a stir when he's just trying to be like, hey, so, stayed behind with Nanami, do anything fun? She's like, no, we were just doing and stuff. So you didn't technically lie. She did say and stuff, and kissing and making out would qualify under the and stuff point. And she was like, oh, well, that sounds... And Maki's a little shit stirrer, though, because when he knew exactly what he was doing when he's like, oh, well, I'd like to learn that stuff, too. And she's like, son of a bitch. Like, he is just enjoying this. He is reveling. Him and his little innocent Nagisa from Free, Armin Arlert from Attack on Titan face, where he's like, oh, me? Oh, I'm just a little guy. I was like, shut up. No, you're not. Like, he's savage. He's a demon. Yeah, and she's like, okay, bye after school. And he's like, Maki just loves it. He loves the drama of it all and to see it all go down. So Nanami also, I love that Nanami is trying to woo you with the snacks. She's like, I got the strawberry Pocky sticks. It's like, no, you can't do that. Honestly, though, I would be easily wooed with food. If you gave me snacks, I'd be like, oh, well, we can try it. We could try this play and just see what happens. So, yeah, I definitely think that her trying to woo her with the cookies and everything is hilarious. And Nanami tries to put on, like, the little innocent, like, oh, I figured you'd be the type, oh, don't you want to do this play? Like, it's hilarious. I like that Sayaka says that she's like, I figured you were the type who gives under pressure. I'm like, Sayaka, you clearly, to me, that is a sign that Sayaka does not know you at all. Because I'm like, what gave you that indication? I was like, you is very much someone that is like, she does not cave under pressure. She's very stubborn and set in her ways. I'm like, that to me shows that Sayaka does not know you very well. And she's like, well, once you get into the role, I swear it'll be fun. And you was like, did you not see me struggling with the speech? I hate crowds. Did you? She's like, you two are monsters. You don't have any problems at all. And Sayaka and Nanami are like, oh, well. And Nanami's like, I would love to be the lead actress because it's what she's doing now. And Yu's like, you kept up the perfect front, but inside you were a nervous wreck. And now you want to do a stage show? She's like, you may be good at acting, but still, why are you so determined to do it? And she's like, well, it's my only chance as president to participate. So, wouldn't it be interesting? Can't that be reason enough? And Yu's like, I do appreciate that Yu is concerned for Nanami about, it's not just the fact that Yu doesn't want to do the stage show because Yu, like Maki, has no interest in it. They're like, no, we don't really want to get up in front of crowds and people and be the center of attention. That's not us. But I also like the fact that throughout this episode, as Maki points out, Yu is more concerned about Nanami. She's like, but Nanami, you're putting on a front and you're putting on this illusion and you don't show your true self to people. So this is just adding like another inception layer of that into the fold. She's like, she's like, I don't think that's healthy. I feel like Yu doesn't want to call out and say, Nanami, your acting is not healthy, but it's not her place to, especially in front of Sayaka. So I like that she's like, why would you put yourself through that to an even greater extent? Unless the murder mystery calls for them to like be a couple or something. And she's like, no. And I love that Nanami tries to do the pout where she's like, please. Like, pouty Nanami is not where I thought this series was going, but I'm here for it. I'm here for Nanami being like this little pouter, and Maki's just like, Maki's like just a gremlin eating it up. And she's like, you just have to pretend you're not in front of a crowd. And he was like, no. So then Daojima, he's like, they're like, the only way to know if I can or not is to actually do it. And he's like, what are you grinning about? And Nanami's like, well, that's why you should try. And Daojima's like, man, we've got all these hot girls around us. Isn't this great? I feel like Daojima is the kid that joined home ec because he thought he was going to meet all the hot girls in home ec. Mm-hmm. I had two friends in high school that we had a home ec class, and none of the guys that were in my classes looked forward to that class because they're like, oh, you gotta sew, you gotta cook, you gotta do this. But two of my best friends in high school, they were like, yeah, we're gonna do home ec. One of them, he was exactly like Daojima, and he was like, we're gonna see like all the hot girls in the class. It's gonna be great. And I'm gonna be the only guy in home ec, me and you, and we'll get all the girls and all this. The other one was gay. So he just hadn't come out yet, and he was just like, yeah. It's just like, yep. So Daojima is definitely the type that he's here to get with the ladies, and Maki is not. And so he's like, isn't this great? We're around a bunch of these hot girls, right? I like in the background you have you saying you can't trick me into this, and Nanami's like, let's just try. And Yu's like, no, thank you. And so then Sayaka says, well, why don't we put a pin in that idea and come back to it once we've thought things over? Sayaka's like, we're getting nowhere. You both are arguing over it. Then Daojima says, so are you into Nanami? Or are you Team Psyche? I was like, Team Psyche? What are these teams? Was this Twilight fandom? And then he says, maybe of all people, you like Koido-san. I'm like, Daojima, how dare you? Like putting Koido, like, oh, maybe by chance she's your type? Like, what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say, Daojima, how dare you? And then Maki's like, no. And he's like, well, just tell me already, which one is your type? Which one is Daojima's type? I feel like Daojima is Team Psyche, if I'm guessing, because he put her on her team. And that's when Maki says, I don't know what to say. I don't have a type. And I was like, oh. At first I thought, well, maybe he doesn't have a type of girl. But then the more this episode went on, I'm like, oh no, you don't have a type of anybody. You don't want to be with anybody. And that's fine. I can relate. And so Maki helps Sayaka take the files back to the back room. And Sayaka asks him about the stage show. And he's like, well, if we don't have to do it, I'd rather we not. And Sayaka's like, well, man, she's like, I really didn't think this many people wouldn't want to do it. So I guess we can't force you. I was like, if two-fifths don't want to do it, then we probably need to rethink things. And then he's like, well, I'm not as firmly opposed to it as Koido-san is. And at that point, I was like, okay, Maki, be careful what you're saying. And I like that Sayaka's like, and that's when he says Nanami-senpai is taking a real liking to her. And I was like, oh. And I was like, I don't know if Maki was trying to stir the pot on that one because he thinks that Sayaka notices as well, or if he was trying to read the room and see if Sayaka had a problem with it. I don't know. I do believe that once you told him not to mention it to anybody, he's going to keep his word. But the problem is, before he agreed to do that, he told this to Sayaka, and it's filled her thoughts with these other thoughts. So now Sayaka's probably going to be paying more attention to it, and she's going to figure out as well. And I don't know if she's going to listen to you and keep it a secret, unless she corners Nanami, figures it out from Nanami, and Nanami's like, don't tell anybody, because I don't know if you's comfortable with it. And so then you have Sayaka and Maki keeping secrets for both sides, and Daojima's the clueless one in the middle. I don't know if that's exactly what's going to end up happening, but I won't be surprised if it is. Or if Sayaka throws a fit about it and then Yu's like, to Maki, I thought we agreed not to say anything. And he's like, well, I may have told her about it before we made those agreements. And it's like, So, I don't know. I don't feel like anything good is going to come from this. And she's like, I can't figure out what about that girl she likes so much. And Maki's like, well, she's really nice. She worked really hard on the speech, And she's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, well, are you holding a grudge because you didn't get asked to do the speech instead? She's like, well, does it seem that way? I love they both look at each other without looking at each other. That's such a great shot. I'm like, She's like, I think Togo's just excited to be a real senpai to someone. She's like, she'll come to her senses soon. And that shot of Maki with the book in front of his face, like, that is the face. I'm going to take a picture of it. That is the face of someone who just stirred up the biggest crock of drama. He's like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm like, dude, you know exactly what's going down. You know exactly what's going down. Don't even lie. So then Maki and her go on a walkabout, and he kind of reveals that, you know, he's like, I wonder if they've already started doing prep work on this play because, you know, they think that everything's going to come to fruition. And Yu's like, you know, everybody just does what Nanami says. And everybody just believes that Nanami is this person, even though she's lying to everybody. She doesn't say that last part, but you can tell that's what she's thinking. And that's when Maki's like, so, you know, you and Nanami, huh? So you guys are dating, right? And that is like the two butterflies landing on the flower. Like, it's so pretty. And then the praying mantis looking at the flower and everything. And he's like, I saw you two yesterday. And Yu is terrified. Because she doesn't know Maki that well. She's like, what is Maki going to do with this information if it gets out? I love the imagery of just the explosion. Of just everything will implode. But the thing about it is, during this entire ordeal, the thing that's interesting is that Yu isn't worried about what people will think of her. Like, when she thinks back to the scenario, it's like, oh, is Nanami senpai dating a first-year girl? They don't mention her name in that. And they're like, oh, this whole time she was saying how she didn't intend to go out with anybody, meaning that people will get mad because she turned them down when she was actually serious about someone. And they're like, so that's how it was, Toko. You let her give your campaign speech because she was your girlfriend. They never mention Yu's name and Yu's vision. So Yu's not worried about herself. She's worried about Nanami's reputation and how Nanami's going to be perceived. And Maki's like, fine, I won't tell anybody, but why? And so then it's her thinking about Yu. And she's like, oh, well, I like that Maki suddenly turns into a therapist. he's like flexing his pre-psychology degree. And he's like, oh, well, the first thing you thought about was being worried for her. Interesting. I feel like he just wants to put you down on a couch, take out a sketch pad and be like, can you tell me more about that? Like, what did you think about this when she was kissing you? What were you thinking about? You know? I feel like Maki was like, I'm so fascinated. I want to know more. And of course, Yu's like, shit, what? And I like that Maki is the one that gets Yu to realize that she is possibly interested in Nanami, and it's happening and she hasn't been realizing it. So Maki says he was raised in a family with 2 older sisters and 1 younger sister. So middle child, it's always the middle children that are the little rascals, that are the gremlins. And he's like, that's probably why I find myself the guy that other girls confide their problems to. I don't feel like that has to necessarily be the case. I know my brother in school, he was constantly the one that a lot of girls in his class kind of confided to. And he's not like Maki at all. And I'm his only sibling. So, but I feel like, you know, some people just have that aura where it's like, you seem like you'd be a good confidant. We can confide things in you. And so he's like, I constantly was the one that he's like, it didn't bother me for them to come to me and talk to me. Girls tend to enjoy talking about love. He basically is like, I got my own access to like a live action shoujo every week. And that's how I find myself following so many real life romance stories. But then when the girl tried to confess to him, he was like, oh, no. He's like, a character from the story shouldn't fall in love with a spectator. It's disappointing. So yeah, Maki's interesting. He's like, I don't want anything like that. I just want to sit in the stands and watch the story unfold on the stage. And that's when he sees the butterfly wings and the 2 of them. And he's like, a new love story. It's a secret performance that only I know about. I want to watch up close at my special reserved seat, to watch up close with care. And he's like, I won't tell anybody. And Yu's like, okay, I trust you after that story. And he's like, but you should be a little bit more careful. And that's when he turns around and she's like, oh, I got it wrong. He's like, well, when I was there, it looked like Nanami Senpai's feelings towards you were pretty one-sided. Now I can tell that you like Nanami Senpai as well. And because you're more worried about her. And that means that she's someone special to you. And he's like, well, Yep, so it's just normal after all. She's like, it's getting harder for her to deny how she feels about Nanami, right? It's getting harder for her to deny those feelings. And I like the idea. I totally agree with Maki. Like, as much as, as much fun as making out with someone is, a relationship's a totally different thing. And it is, I think that's why a lot of people that are maybe on the A spectrum like to just read stories with that romance, because you find a way to separate yourself. It's one reason I like BL so much. You're not the character in the story, and it's two characters that you separate yourself from. So you still get that romance, you still get that storytelling, but you don't have to connect yourself to it. And I think that's a big appeal, at least for me, to BL, because I've read some really smutty things, some real smutty things, but then in the back of my mind I was like, I'm never doing that. And I think even if you're not asexual, even if you're like in the most monogamous or polyamorous or like in any relationship and you're like, nope, vanilla it is, I think that's totally fine. So I love Maki's character so much now, and I love how he is in this show, and getting this episode where we get to learn more about his character and him being a confidant for you is really good. And I've talked about this episode for an hour. I sat down, I was like, oh, we'll just watch Bloom Into You. It'll be no big deal. It's fine. That is not what happened, let me tell you. What a great episode. I really, really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I'm super curious to know your thoughts down below about this episode, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, next week we'll see how Yu's feelings about this all are going to develop, and what, now that Maki's involved, how that's going to go, and with Sayaka and all that. We'll tie back to episode 5 here real soon with more Bloom Into You.